Fiji just beat Wales.
Wow.
In rugby, in Cardiff, for the first time ever.
No way.
Yeah, it's massive. We're talking like a total David and Goliath situation.
Yeah.
But David actually won this time. And to make it even crazier,
Well, it gets better.
Wales is on this like 10-game losing streak. Their worst ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're diving deep into this match today, trying to figure out just how it all went down and what it all means for both teams.
Right.
We've got a match report and highlight reel from Sky Sports to break it all down.
Okay, perfect.
So.
The thing is, like, what's really interesting here is the context. This wasn't just any old match.
Right.
This was part of the Autumn Nations series. It's kind of like rugby's Fall Classic, right?
Gotcha.
Where you've got all the top teams from around the world battling it out. So the stakes were already high.
Yeah, I mean, even with Wales not doing so hot, you'd think being on their home turf would give them some kind of edge.
You'd think so, right? Especially against a team they've pretty much always beaten in the past.
Right.
But this match, it flipped the script completely. This wasn't just a win for Fiji.
Yeah.
This was a statement.
And it started with Wales actually looking pretty strong, right? They scored a try super early on, like within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. Debutante wing Blair Murray
Oh, yeah.
got that first try. It was beautifully set up by Ben Thomas and Mason Grady. I mean, Wales seemed like they had that spark back, you know, that confidence they've been missing.
Yeah.
You almost thought just maybe the losing streak was about to end right then and there.
Yeah, it felt like it for a second.
Right.
Sadly, it didn't last very long.
It did. Things got a bit chaotic
Yeah,
and a lot more physical.
for sure.
Wales almost scored again with Cameron Winnett.
Okay.
But the try was disallowed because of a dangerous tackle by his teammate Tommy Reffel.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Reffel got a yellow card, meaning he was sent off for 10 minutes. And that moment, I think it really foreshadowed just how intense and physical this match was going to be.
Yeah. Fiji didn't back down at all, though. Even when they had some of their own players sent off with those yellow cards,
Yeah.
they were down to 13 players at one point.
Oh, wow.
But they still kept that pressure on. It's like they had this unwavering belief
Yeah.
that they could actually win.
That's where Caleb Muntz, their fly half, really shines.
Months.
Yeah, think of the fly half as the team's playmaker.
Yeah.
Kind of like a quarterback in American football.
Right.
Muntz scored 19 points, including a solo try that was pure magic.
Wow.
He was the backbone of Fiji's attack.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like every time Wales got close to pulling ahead, Muntz would make some crazy play to keep Fiji in it. Talk about clutch.
Totally. And then there's the whole red card situation.
Oh, yeah.
Semi Radradra, who's a key player for Fiji, got a red card in the first half.
Red card. That's not good.
Not good at all. It means you're out of the game for good. Usually a major setback for any team.
So how did Fiji manage to come back from that?
Well, that's where this 20-minute red card rule comes in. It basically allows a team to replace a red-carded player after 20 minutes, even though that player is permanently out of the game.
Right.
And in this case, it actually worked out in Fiji's favor.
Yeah.
They got Radradra's replacement on the field early in the second half,
Okay.
which really helped them regain their composure
Yeah.
and turn the tide.
So they went from trailing at halftime to actually taking the lead.
Exactly. Muntz just kept racking up points with penalties.
Right.
And then Hosua Tuisova scored another try for Fiji after some truly beautiful team play.
Wow.
They were passing the ball with such speed and precision. It was poetry in motion.
I bet Wales was starting to sweat.
Oh, for sure. The tension was palpable.
Yeah.
Wales did manage to score another try with Ellis Bevan, making it a really close game.
Okay.
But Fiji just never let up.
They held their nerve. It was a total nail biter.
It was, and it was even more impressive considering that they had a try disallowed themselves.
Oh, wow.
But they stayed focused, defended like crazy, and in the end, they earned that historic win.
What a story, for sure. But this is just the beginning of our deep dive. What does this result mean for Wales, a team trying to climb out of their longest losing streak ever? And for Fiji, a team making history. We'll get into all of that and more right after this. We just talked about that incredible win for Fiji, but I'm kind of curious about the other side of this. What does this loss mean for Wales, a team that's desperately trying to get out of this rut?
I mean, this loss, it's got to sting for Wales, right? Not only is it their 10th loss in a row, but it also kind of throws a wrench into Warren Gatland's plans.
Right, their coach.
Yeah, he's been trying to rebuild the team, focusing on young players and their development.
Right.
But the pressure to win, it's huge.
I mean, he's essentially asking fans for patience.
Yeah.
But how long could that really last?
It's tough.
Yeah.
You know, this loss, it might actually force Gatland to rethink his whole approach. Does he stick with these young players and risk even more losses? Or does he bring in some more experienced guys and potentially sacrifice long-term growth for some wins now?
Yeah, it's like this balancing act between getting results now and building for the future.
Totally.
Not an easy spot to be in.
Not at all. And then you've got to think about the players, the mental side of things. 10 losses in a row, that can really mess with a team's confidence.
Oh, yeah. Create a ton of doubt.
For sure.
I can't imagine the morale in the Welsh camp is very high.
It's got to be a mix of frustration and disappointment. But this is where good leadership comes in. Gatland, he needs to rally his team, help them learn from this experience, and use it as fuel to get better.
Okay. So Wales has a lot to think about. But on the flip side, Fiji is on top of the world right now. How do you think this win's going to impact them?
For Fiji, this changes everything. This is validation.
Yeah.
For all their hard work and dedication, they've shown the world that they can compete with the best.
Absolutely. I bet the celebrations back in Fiji are epic.
Oh, I'm sure they are. This is a victory that will be remembered for years. And it has the potential to really boost Fijian rugby.
What do you mean by that?
Well, this kind of win,
Yeah.
it could attract more investment in the sport, better facilities, more coaching resources.
Right.
It could inspire a whole new generation of Fijian players to dream big
Yeah.
and go for that international success.
So it's bigger than just this one win.
It is. It's about raising the profile of Fijian rugby on a global scale.
Right.
It's putting them on the map as a real rugby powerhouse.
Makes sense.
And it sends a message to other up-and-coming rugby nations
Right.
that you can compete at the highest level. You can challenge those traditional giants.
You mentioned earlier this idea of the gap shrinking
Yeah.
between those Tier 1 and Tier 2 nations. How does this Fiji win fit into that?
I think this is a perfect example of how that gap is closing.
Right.
We're seeing more and more teams from outside those traditional powerhouses challenging the established order.
Yeah. So what's driving this shift?
Well, I think there are a few things. One is the increasing professionalism of rugby in these emerging nations.
Right.
Players are getting better coaching, better training facilities, access to more resources.
So it's becoming less about where you're from
Yeah.
and more about the opportunities you have
Right.
to develop your talent.
100%. We're also seeing more players from these nations getting chances to play in those professional leagues around the world,
Right.
gaining valuable experience, exposure to different styles of play.
So it's like they're taking those lessons back home
They are.
and raising the level of competition.
Exactly. And then there's the tactical side of things.
Right.
Teams like Fiji are coming up with these innovative game plans that challenge the traditional approaches.
You mentioned earlier about Fiji's offloading game. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. So offloading is basically passing the ball right before you get tackled.
Okay.
You're keeping the play alive and creating these unpredictable attacks.
Right.
Fiji, they've really mastered this. It's one of the reasons they're so dangerous.
So it's like they're always one step ahead.
Right. It makes them really hard to defend against because you never know where the ball is going next.
Makes sense.
It's a testament to their skill, their athleticism, and their understanding of the game.
Okay, so we've got Wales facing a tough loss, Fiji celebrating this historic victory. But zooming out, what does all of this mean for the future of rugby as a whole?
I think Fiji's win.
Yeah.
It's a sign of what's to come. We're going to see more upsets, more unpredictable results, and just way more competition at the highest level.
So the whole landscape of international rugby is changing.
It is. And I, for one, am excited to see where this journey takes us.
We've covered a lot, but I want to dig a little deeper into these global trends we're seeing. We'll explore that more after a quick break. We've talked about Fiji's win and what it means for them in Wales, but this match, it really has some big implications for the whole sport, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just some isolated incident, Fiji's victory. It's part of this much larger trend in rugby, the rise of these teams that people used to think of as underdogs.
Yeah, like we're seeing more parity, more unpredictability. So what's behind this whole shift?
Well, for one, there's been a huge increase in investment in rugby development. In countries like Fiji, Georgia, Japan, we're talking way better coaching, better facilities, clearer paths for these young athletes to really reach their full potential.
So it's kind of leveling the playing field,
Yeah.
giving these talented players the resources they need to actually compete on that global stage.
Exactly. And it's not just about infrastructure either. We're seeing way more players from these emerging nations getting opportunities to play in those pro leagues around the world.
Right.
And that exposure to top-level competition, it's priceless.
Yeah, they're learning from the best, honing their skills.
Yeah.
And then they bring that experience back to their national teams.
Right, it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole tactical evolution.
Yeah.
These teams, they're getting way more sophisticated in their approach to the game. They're studying their opponents, analyzing weaknesses, and coming up with these innovative game plans.
Yeah, Fiji's offloading game is a perfect example of that. They've taken a pretty basic rugby skill, right? And they've basically turned it into an art form.
It's amazing to watch. The way they keep the ball alive, create those unpredictable offloads, it's so hard to defend against.
So it's like they're always thinking a few steps ahead.
Right, and that strategic depth, that's what makes this new era of rugby so exciting.
Yeah.
All those old assumptions about who the dominant teams are, they're being challenged. Any team on any given day, they can pull off an upset.
That's what makes sports so fun. The possibility of the unexpected.
Absolutely. And I think this whole trend has the potential to really reshape international rugby in some really cool ways.
Like how? What are some of the things we might see down the road?
Well, I think we're going to see way more competitive World Cups.
Oh, yeah.
Those traditional powerhouses, they can't just assume they'll dominate anymore.
Imagine a World Cup where multiple teams have a real shot at winning. That would be wild.
It would. It would be huge for the sport. And I think it would get way more people around the world interested in rugby as more nations become competitive. It just expands the whole reach and appeal of the sport.
Like what we've seen with women's rugby.
Exactly.
More investment and visibility have made it way more popular.
Totally. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some changes to the structure of international rugby, too.
What do you mean?
Well, there's been talk about creating more regular competitions between the top-ranked nations and these emerging rugby powers,
Right.
giving those teams more chances to test themselves against the best and level the playing field.
So it's about having more matches that really matter, making sure that the best teams in the world, no matter their history, get to play each other regularly.
Exactly. And that would be good for everyone. The top teams would be challenged more often, the emerging teams would get amazing experience, and the fans would see some seriously good rugby.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about after this whole deep dive?
I think the main thing is rugby is changing. It's getting more dynamic, more competitive, more unpredictable, and that's awesome. It makes it way more exciting to watch, and it opens up so many possibilities for the future.
So embrace the change, expect the unexpected, and get ready for some amazing rugby in the coming years. Who knows what kind of crazy moments and underdog stories are waiting to happen.
I love that. The future of rugby is bright, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out.
That wraps up our deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored Fiji's historic win over Wales and what it all means for rugby. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that curiosity alive.